What's up, peeps? Julian Williams here with the distance video for you guys this evening. This one's going to be for the rematch between David Price and Tony Thompson. Bout was a heavyweight bout over in the UK this evening. Afternoon in the United States, night for the UK, 6 hour difference. So the fight I'm watching right now is George Chuvalo versus George Foreman. One of my favorite fights here. Very interesting fight also. The story later on about George Chuvalo, I guess I think Arthur McCanny said that it was Chuvalo's wife was in the audience and she was upset. And it's also revealed that George Foreman was tired after the barrage at the end. So to me, I always had a great deal of respect for George Chuvalo. Faced some of the hardest punches at heavyweight. Was in some tough fights at heavyweight. Faced the best of his era, best of his time. Never been down, never been, never been down, never been hurt. So anyway, I almost said knocked out, but I mean, exactly gist of what I'm saying. But never been necessarily hurt, never been knocked down. So anyway, let's talk about Tony Thompson versus David Price. So overall, you could tell in the beginning of the fight, if you look at the body language of David Price, he was not the same. If you look early on, you look at his eyes early on, you could tell that there was a lot of anxiety going to the fight. And I think it could have been a reason where he was fighting out of his element in a way. Now that's no excuse for a loss. I thought it was a terrible game plan that was initiated for Price. Because a lot of fighters, of course, have their own set of natural skills and natural instinct. And David Price went out and he fought his own fight. I mean, and it wasn't a fight that was made for him. I mean, he fought Tony Thompson's fight and he paid for it. So early on in the fight, like I said, you can see a lot of fundamental flaws. I mean, you could, like I said, you look in his eyes, you could see that there were some flaws. I mean, you could tell he was nervous. I mean, the way he was throwing his jab, the way he followed up his jab with his power shots, he would be out of position to where he was squaring up. He would throw his hooks very wide. He didn't clinch properly. He let Tony Thompson fight him on the inside. When it come to find out, his defense wasn't all too up par. I mean, it was a terrible fight for David Price. I mean, you can't really beat him over the head with that much more than it was just a bad fight, a bad game plan. I did listen to what his trainers were saying early on. You can't be a cheerleader with a fighter coming off of a loss and telling the fighter what they did right and saying, "Oh, David, you did great, yippee!" Something along those lines. You have to tell. I mean, even when the fighter is doing great in a round, you have to be your fighter's harshest critic. You have to tell your fighter, "Okay, cool, you're doing this right, but do this. This is gonna open up the right hand. This will open up the left hook." But the thing was, he wasn't utilizing his size. That's the first thing. He was not utilizing his size. You have to. I mean, if you're a tall fighter, you have to use your jab. You have to use your legs to get out of the way. Obviously. But also, you could tell. Also, there were some issues with coordination. The way he would and it wasn't only his body, his feet would be out of position as well. His feet would be out of position, which would cause him to square up. When he squared up, he dropped his hands. And then by the time he brought his hands back up, he was getting hit. So of course he got the knockdown in round 2, and he got confident. Which is your Achilles heel when you're facing a fighter who has your number. So now, you're not, I mean, he wasn't fighting tall much longer after that second round. It became a fight. He started to stand there trading with him, bouncing around the ring. Eventually, he got tired. Tony Thompson was hitting him to the body. He got tired. He got hit to the body. And then those body shots took its toll. Later on in round 5, it was over. Got him on standing 8. So, I mean, that fight is as much David Price's fault as it was his corner's fault. Because he should have been fighting big, that entire fight. He should have kept Thompson on the outside and make him pay for trying to step inside with a right hand. So, I mean, it was just totally the wrong fight for David Price to be. I mean, like I said, and really, to be honest with you, as far as David Price is concerned, they really need to go back to square one when it comes to his training. You can see a lot of flaws of what he did wrong. He did a lot wrong with this fight. I mean, and it comes down to training, but also it comes down to tangibles. There's a lot of stuff that he did incorrect in this fight that you just can't. I mean, and that's something that we're going to be emphasizing a lot for him. I mean, this is a man that said he's the future of the heavyweight division. So, I mean, I think, he needs a totally new team. He needs a totally new team. I think that really what really needs to be emphasized on is that he does not want to be an attribute-driven fighter. Being a fighter that's dependent on power more so than everything else. That's the first thing. And sometimes it's the smaller things. Maybe, he can find a way to step around and get his left hook in. Something along those along those lines. But such a tall heavyweight with so much power, I would really like to see somebody go in and just break him down and just go back to just showing him the fundamentals. I mean, rest in peace to the great Emmanuel Stewart. He's one of those guys that will take his fighter, sit him down, and just go over, hey, check this out, you're a tall fighter? Let's do this. Let's get you some good sparring. Let's work on coordination. Let's get you in with some of these men in the Krong gym, and look at how they move. Look at their lateral movement. Look at their footing. Look how they place their hands. I think that's what David Price is going to need. I think he needs to go back and study. Go back to the tapes, study. Look at some of the greats. Look at how they position their hands. Look at how right here with George Foreman. Look at how he positioned his feet. Look how he steps into his punches. That's what David Price has to do. He got to go back to the drawing board and go from there. On the other hand, Tony Thompson fought the perfect fight. He made a young fighter come in and fight his fight. I mean, that's what a veteran does. He got knocked down at the end of a round. He had more than enough time to come in. I mean, enough time to clear his head. And before the round was over, he was moving. Tony Thompson, I mean, the sky's the limit for him at this point. He's not going to get another fight with Klitschko anytime soon unless it's the other brother, Vitaly. But it will be interesting if he does fight Tyson Fury, I must admit. So anyway, peeps, I'm out of here. That was the distance, and thanks for watching. Peace.